Marianne Williamson goes on the Humanist report to talk about Israel and the Palestinian, if you want to call it the conflict for this segment. Now, I watched it, and what was hilarious to me, and I tweeted it out and I screenshot it when I was watching it, because when it starts out in the video, and I'm going to get to the video in just a second, when it starts out in the video, they're talking about politics, they're talking about, the state of the race and all that kind of thing. And then when they pivot to when Mike says, hey, let's talk about Israel, Marianne Williamson picks up her drink. I'm going to call it wine because it's funny. She picks up her wine and downs that shit. And I took the snapshot, and I thought that shit was hilarious because she knows this is a person who understands that her position is terrible. And let me read what I said. I said, Marianne Williamson knows her take on Palestine and Israel is so bad that when Humanist report says, quote, let's talk about Israel now, end quote, Marianne Williamson takes a huge drink. And then let me show you this other one before I move on. Where is it? Oh, I thought I saved it, but I'll just click this here. And we'll get to the video, the actual video. I quote tweeted my own tweet, and let me show you what that said, because she takes another sip. Actually, it's not going to go. Anyway, she takes another sip after the exchange. She takes another sip. You'll see it in the video. And let's get to the video now.
Running in the 2024 Democratic Party primary against Joe Biden, and she is here to talk about her campaign. Full disclosure, though, I do intend on voting for Marianne in the upcoming 2024 Oregon primary. So my biases. I'm laying it.
That's crazy because he said some not so good stuff about Marianne Williamson when she first started to run, and we covered it as a video that we made about it.
All out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that I won't ask hard questions, but I think it's important for viewers that they know who the interviewer is, where they're coming from, because you never see that on mainstream media. But
so, like I said, I want to move to the Israel stuff because I don't need to hear this fluff stuff.
It goes both ways,
Okay. So I do want to move on. I want to talk about healthcare. So healthcare, if you go to your website,
oops. Wait a minute here. Why do my notes say something different? This is starting to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to YouTube and get this video because it looks like Twitter may be acting up with the playback of the video. So let's go to YouTube and get the YouTube version of this, which is ridiculous because I cut the video and put it on Twitter so I didn't have to do this, but because it's not playing correctly, I will have to go to YouTube anyway. And here it goes. Did I click it? Oh, sorry, my bad. I didn't click it. So we're gonna go. So this is
I don't think it would be the United States suggesting it.
It gets pretty bad. By the way, I should have said that. It gets really bad, because he goes and asks her if she would recommend Henry Kissinger to the ICC if she was elected president, and she says no. Henry Kissinger. It doesn't go well for her. But here's the Israel part.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like
why she takes
I like that you also talked about there's a lid kind of keeping the will of the people kind of suppressed, and we're seeing this right now in action with regard to the ceasefire, for example. I mean, multiple polls have shown majority support for Americans, especially among Democrats, and that's not something that is even a possibility, at least according to the Biden administration's rhetoric. I wanted to ask you about that, by the way. So when it comes to Israel-Palestine, Biden is fundamentally at odds with his base. So I'm curious how you would differ on this policy and where your biggest disagreements with the Biden administration is.
Well, I've been calling for a ceasefire from the very beginning. The day of October 7th, I appreciated the president's moral clarity. The next day, however, he said, I'm going to be meeting with Jewish American.
So let's break down what she's saying, because she says a lot of things and she purposely under describes it so that it's not clear what she's saying. When she says, I was happy for the president's moral clarity on October 7th, that means she's fine with the president siding with Israel and the IDF for this nonsense. That's what this means. She couldn't say that because she's trying to get lefties, and they're the ones that's out protesting. So she's very, you know what, I'm not gonna even describe it.
Among Democrats, and that's not something that is even a possibility, at least according to the Biden administration's rhetoric. I wanted to ask you about that, by the way. So when it comes to Israel-Palestine, Biden is fundamentally at odds with his base. So I'm curious how you would differ on this policy and where your biggest disagreements with the Biden administration is.
Well, I've been calling for a ceasefire from the very beginning. The day of October 7th, I appreciated the president's moral clarity. The next day, however, he said, I'm going to be meeting with Jewish American leaders today. I would have said, had I been president, I'm going to be meeting with both Jewish and Arab American leaders today.
So she would have called for a ceasefire in the beginning. Instead of meeting with just Jewish leaders, she would have met with Jewish and Palestinian leaders. So these are differences.
Particularly Palestinian American leaders. America's highest ally should be humanity itself. So ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, there's no, this is wrong-minded on every level.
Understand, in the professional managerial class world, in the NATO left world, in the boutique left world, a ceasefire is the highest honor that you can give as a person in solidarity with Palestinians. You saying ceasefire is the pinnacle, is the number one slot. Now, if you're more radical like us, of course, that's not the number one slot. Ceasefire is literally like not even opening a door. It's like putting your key in the door. You're not even in there. That's the beginning. You're not even, haven't done anything yet. But to them, that is the top thing.
Every level, this military action of theirs. Immediate ceasefire, release of the hostages, and immediate architecture for a two-state solution. To me, that is absolutely the only way.
Would you be open to the idea of a one-state solution with equal rights? And I ask this because more and more, there's been a lot of individuals, including Israeli scholars like Avi Shlein, for example, who don't think that a two-state solution is any longer possible just because there's so many settlements. Like, for example, in the West Bank, I think the number is 750,000 Israeli settlements. So how do you do two-state given this situation currently? Is one state something that would be on the table for you or that you would consider? Or do you think that two-state really is the only path forward?
Well, I realize it's something that would have to be resurrected, but those settlements have never been legal. They've never been legal. Those people shouldn't be there. So to say, oh, there's 750,000, where do you put them? Back to where they were. I'm sorry. I'm a practical.
Where do you put them? Where were they? What do you mean back to where they were? Where is back, Marianne Williamson? Back to Ukraine? Like in the previous segment where the guy said he's born in Ukraine, back to Russia?
Woman, when you talk about one state, if ever there was a prospect for a bloody civil war, it's one state. It's like La La Land. Who's going to govern?
So I have to insert this because we also believe in a one state, but not from the perspective of the professional managerial class NATO left. They view one state as Israel's state. It should be one state. Palestinian, if Israelis want to live there, I'm sorry, if people who call themselves Israelis want to live there, that's fine. But that's Palestine. It should be a one state, and it should be Palestine, not Israel.
Govern this one state. I mean, you think it's bad now, them not even living right there together. So I believe that it's going to be
I can't even look at this one.
Quite a long time.
It's terrible.
Before a one state is desirable there.
Yeah.
You know, I heard somebody.
Do you get the feelings that she has any idea that she knows what she's talking about? Think about that as she talks.
I thought this was so American. Somebody said there needs to be just a one state, it needs to be secular. And I thought, if ever there was an American blind spot, here are two people who are very clear that their religions matter. And here's this American progressive coming in saying, and it'll be a secular country.
Just that comment, I should just shut this fucking segment down right there. I don't understand how you can be this bad. She's saying that it should be a two-state religious country instead of a one-state not secular country. And she's making it seem like, oh, here's this progressives trying to say this needs to be secular. Yes, it does. There should be no religious state anywhere, in my opinion. But she's attempting to sort of frame it as it's some sort of like we don't know what we're talking about. Like let me let her finish. Because I don't want to use too much.
So we're going to impose that. So
I'm trying not to use so much profanity with this person. This person is one of the people that really gets under my skin because, again, I trained salespeople for years. This is clearly a salesperson and a bad one. Vivek will be on the other spectrum. He's a top salesman in a sales class. He will be the top. She will be the worst one who thinks she's doing a good job.
So I to me, they both deserve and
she doesn't have
need
any idea what she's talking about.
States, both of them. Easy, no, but one state that doesn't in any way to me solve a problem.
Well, here's what I will say to that. So a lot of folks were also fearful of, internal disputes with the end of apartheid in South Africa. And on top of that, the other argument, the counter argument is, prior to the Balfour Declaration, there was peace. Arabs and Jewish people, for the most part, lived in that area. And the Jewish population was much smaller, but there was relative peace. So this is kind of the thinking of individuals like Avi Shlaim, and how it is even though it's inconceivable now, it is something that could be possible. What would you say to that?
I would say that the days that you're talking about, there were tribes wandering around. There were no nation states. There wasn't a nation state.
Good Lord.
There
Who
weren't
told
any
you
states
this
at all? That's very different than one state. And in today's world, there's going to be a state. So it's not like we can go back to that. And I don't believe that the entire state of Israel is apartheid. There are apartheid laws. I believe that there is clearly the West Bank is, clearly the settlements are, but there are Arabs in the Knesset. I'm not.
She clearly doesn't even understand what the word apartheid means, because she's saying the way that it's not apartheid because there's Palestinians in a particular government. So Marianne Williamson now proclaims that Israel is not an apartheid state. Meanwhile, we had the Palestinian Community Network on here, and they corrected us. They said, no, stop saying apartheid state. That's too nice. Genocidal state before October 7th. We're talking about our last summit when we had them on. That was earlier this year in the summertime. They were saying that this is a genocidal state, and they're only proving that today. But even after all what she's seen happen, 15,000 plus people at the time of this recording killed, Israel is not an apartheid state. Who's still voting for this person? Hold on a second here. I gotta see. It went away. I only sneeze about maybe 5 times in a year. So when I sneeze, it's kind of like, wow, hold on, what the hell's going on? But anyway, let it play a little more, and I'll move on to the next thing.
I'm not enrolled in the idea that this is not South Africa to me.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right. You know what that means? Interesting. This is a bad take, and I'm just going to move on. I don't want this to be Nina Turner 2.0, where I bring on a candidate and she destroys her candidacy on her own on my channel. Israel is not an apartheid state. This is not South Africa. Meanwhile, 20 dead bodies and infrastructures destroyed, churches shot up, hospitals bombed. And I just showed you the other segment with Christian Amanpour when she's doing a report on the rise in violence in West Bank by the settlers. This is all bad by Marianne Williamson. But what I don't understand about Marianne Williamson is that there's been so many interviews that you have been caught off guard and illustrates that you have no idea about the subject matter, yet you still go on these shows without studying and brushing up on anything. You still seem very uninformed about this issue.
Let me ask you this, because you do support a ceasefire, which I think is the bare minimum. So that is, to me, you passed that test. Let's take it further, though. I'm curious. For what it's worth, you passed the test. So here's what I want to ask you.
And
in the event,
I think that's worth noting.
Right, true, very true. So in the event you become president, hypothetically speaking, I would assume that you would sign on to the International Criminal Court. So after...
Yeah. Dick Cheney might not be too happy about that. Or
she has no idea yet what the question's going to be. This is why she can say this. But then he's going to call her on her bluff. So what she's saying here, she wants to give the appearance, yeah, I'll join the IDC. And Dick Cheney better watch out for that, right? Because of what, Marianne? Are you trying to allude that you would do something to Dick Cheney or refer Dick Cheney to the ICC? Is that what you're trying to allude? Because you know your audience is left? But Mike from the Humanist Report is actually going to call her on this. Let's see how she backs off this now.
Or George Bush.
You know exactly what I was going to ask you. So, yeah, with us under their jurisdiction, would you...
No, she doesn't. Because she thought you was going to say Dick Cheney. He doesn't ask her about Dick Cheney. Listen to this. As president,
not pull an Obama, and actually recommend some of your predecessors for prosecution, including Joe Biden.
No. I would not.
Why not?
Did you see the tail? The clearing of the throat, and that's buying time. So she can come up with an answer. She has no clue to that answer prior to it being asked. What to give, how it's going to be received. This has happened so many times with her in interviews that she goes on and she, in the interview, she's learning a policy position. And here's another one.
Because I believe that a lot of forgiveness and a lot of mercy is necessary going forward.
Oh my God, I'm about to vomit. Now, understand, listen to the pauses. Listen to how long the pauses are, because she's trying to come up on the fly with an acceptable answer that she has no idea about. So she throws in this lovey-dovey bullshit as an explanation. So let's listen again.
True, very true. So in the event you become president, hypothetically speaking, I would assume that you would sign on to the International Criminal Court. So after...
Yeah. Dick Cheney might not be too happy about that, or George Bush.
You know exactly what I was going to ask you. So yeah, with us under their jurisdiction, would you, as president, not pull an Obama and actually recommend some of your predecessors for prosecution, including Joe Biden?
No. I would not.
Why not?
Listen to the pause.
Because I believe that a lot of forgiveness and a lot of mercy is necessary going forward. And if, you know, I would certainly not, like, look at someone like, I'm not coming from a Gerald Ford place where he pardoned Richard Nixon, because I think it really hurt the nation that he pardoned.
What the fuck are you even talking about right now? she seemed to only know stuff that's pre-1970. That's the only stuff where she knows details of legislation. Anything after 1970, she has no details at all. So she's going back to Gerald Ford because she has no understanding how to apply what he's asking now. She can only apply to shit in the past. Listen to this.
Richard Nixon, especially when John Mitchell and Ehrlichman and all those guys, Haldeman, et cetera, had gone to jail. I think Haldeman went. But when I think of the things that I would like to achieve as president and the political capital that you have, having been elected president, I would not be immediately day one. There are a lot of things you could ask me about if I would do day one or if I would do in the first 100 days, joining the criminal court and suggesting Joe Biden, Dick Cheney, and George Bush for criminal prosecution would be to me the most performative indulgence. To me, those things do
performative indulgence. So now she's going into nondescript adjectives and phrases that tell you nothing. That's what she's doing here. This person is flailing because she has no idea about the subject matter or what she's talking about.
Not represent the serious work of going forward and trying to right either our domestic or our foreign policy.
This is completely incoherent.
Where it is malfeasance.
But what do you say to this idea
so, just like Jordan over at Status Quo at the time when he was interviewer, he's understanding at the time your answer that in mid-interview, she has no idea. So let me baby step her and give her an easier hurdle to give the right answer, because that wasn't the right answer. So listen to what he does.
That if we never hold people who break international law accountable, that they're going to do it again. I mean, for example, let's say that Henry Kissinger was still alive. If you were president, would you even recommend somebody like him who's responsible for 4 or 5 million plus deaths?
To actually, first of all, I think other countries would suggest it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would be the United States suggesting it. That's rarely how it works, I think. So,
but would you?
Huh? Would I?
Would you?
She's trying so hard not to answer this question because he's giving you one of the worst criminals, war criminals in history, as a layup. Okay. You can't do Joe Biden. Okay, I got you. You're not gonna do George. Okay, I got you. What about this historical figure who's dead, who has killed 4 or 5 million people? This person has no idea what she's talking about. And if you're voting for her, this is throwing away your vote, because you're giving your vote to a person who has no idea what she's talking about and has no business running.
If you were president, would you even recommend somebody like him who's responsible for 4 or 5 million plus deaths?
To actually, first of all, I think other countries would suggest it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the easy answer, yes or no. You see, she's trying to divert, but he doesn't allow that.
I don't think it would be the United States suggesting it. That's rarely how it works, I think. So,
but would you?
Huh? Would I?
Huh? Would you? Huh? I've never heard her say, huh. She's trying to buy time. She doesn't want to answer.
If I were president and we were in the criminal court, would I have suggested it?
Henry Kissinger, yeah.
I would not have suggested it, but if we were a member of the criminal court, then listen, one of the reasons we should be a member of the criminal court is because some of those things might not have happened if we had been.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we were not a member of the criminal court is what made the Dick Cheneys of the world and the Henry Kissingers of the world feel such permission to carry out their imperialistic, militaristic tirades to begin with.
Listen to the description of what she acknowledges those two people did, but then in the same breath, she says she would not recommend them. Y'all need to start thanking RBN for having y'all dodge a bullet with this motherfucker right here. You realize how much money y'all would have thrown away on if we didn't spot this fucking charlatan from a long time ago? Clowns. She's a fucking clown. I'm gonna get she's one of the people that triggers me the most, along with Hillary Clinton and Obama. She's a fucking clown.